House Republicans say they're going to investigate the cover-up of President Biden's mental decline. Been waiting for that for some time. I'm glad they're getting on it. Democrats are now facing questions on Biden's mental fitness after the two new books that revealed stunning details about the cover-up.
Do you think that former President Biden's advisors misled the American people about his capacities?
It's hard for me to gauge what the closest advisors of the president were seeing at the time. I can only speak to the interactions that I had with him, which were, in the months leading up to his getting out of the race, largely ceremonial occasions. But I will say this. He made the decision to get out of the race. I think that was the right decision.
It's hard for him to gauge. I mean, most of you gauged. We all had the video. I guess Schiff wasn't paying attention. And Governor Tim Walz now backpedaling as well.
The party needs to acknowledge that President Biden was not up for the job of running for re-election and that this was a major mistake by the
He made that decision.
I know, but you all went along with the idea that he was up for it, and he wasn't. And everybody saw it, and the country rejected it.
Yeah, well, look, history will tell us to go back on that. That very well could be the case, Jake. What I'm concerned about is learning from those lessons. I would hope we would never do it again, make a mistake, make sure we go through and get someone.
Interesting. Well, that's not what he said this past August.
Did you discuss it?
Yes, fit for office. President has three and a half years of delivering for us, going through what we've all been through. None of us are denying. Thursday night was a bad performance. It was a bad hit, if you will, on that. But it doesn't impact what I believe he's delivering.
So there was Tim Walz defending President Biden. I want to bring up Kamala Harris, who also defended someone she watched for 4 years decline. And yet she defended him this way after that epic Robert Hur report.
So the way that the president's demeanor in that report was characterized could not be more wrong on the facts and clearly politically motivated, gratuitous.
Emily, they defended Biden categorically and fervently, and now you have Tim Walz backing away. What, because he wants to run for president?
Of course, and because it's now so obvious that what we are learning is the extent of the cover-up, and it's even more shocking than we thought. I want to focus for a minute, because as we've talked about, well, what next? What does that accountability look like? And we hope we see some. Congress is going to haul in some people and actually drill down deep into what was said and when. And I want to point out, for one, Dr. Kevin O'Connor's the White House physician, who maintained over and over and over again how fit and how mentally acute that President Biden was. There's a lot to answer for here. And just remembering this one fact, that in the span of 9 months, there was a Parkinson's specialist, also a Kevin Kennard, a physician, that visited President Biden 8 times. Mm-hmm. So 8 times a Parkinson's specialist visited the president in the span of 9 months. And when asked about it at the time, Dr. O'Connor said, "Oh, no, nothing to see here. Everything is just fine." Well, I think we've learned now that it wasn't just fine. So what's now not going to be fine is all of them held to account, their feet to the fire, and they can backpedal all they want. You said earlier the Democrats are revealing themselves for who they are. Absolutely. And what they are. But the reality is they have no one for themselves to blame. And I've continued to argue, number one, the blood on their hands of those service members that lost their lives, and every single law should be invalidated.
Brian, I'm so glad that Emily brought this up. Kevin O'Connor is the doctor for Biden. He's very close with the family. I'm so glad that Ronnie Jackson is being a big voice and bringing him before Congress. I've been saying since December, asking lawmakers, are you going to let this issue go away, or are you going to investigate? Because this has ramifications for the future. A president in mental decline, it was covered up. Kevin O'Connor telling the New York Post, when asked if he should have a cognitive test or was concerned about the visits, no, he's good. The American people deserve the truth, if not to look backwards, to look forward.
And he says, and Ronnie Jackson says he's like a member of the Biden family. So he's covering that up. For the longest time we heard about Woodrow Wilson's stroke and his wife covered it up. That would never happen again, especially in something like 2024 with all these streaming and all the news that we have today. It happened because lawmakers and the people close to him refused to admit what we all saw. He couldn't leave a stage. He couldn't make a speech, couldn't answer a question, couldn't do an interview, couldn't last more than 2 hours, would never be around, would put a lid on early in the day. And I just love what Adam Schiff says, who has zero credibility, how he became senator. California should be so embarrassed. I only talked to him a couple of times in ceremonial situations, at which time did he slur something? And then you have Governor Walz come out and says, history will tell us to look back on that. No, you should tell us. You just left a meeting with him. You were defending him with Shannon Bream saying he's never been better. And the worst thing to happen to the Democratic Party is for them to do well on the midterms in 2022. It gave Biden the ability to say, I could run again.
Yeah.
Harris,
You know,
it's not,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to point out, it's not believable that Adam Schiff saying he could not gauge this. When you had Olivia Nuzzi saying longtime friends of the Biden family who spoke to me on condition of anonymity were shocked to find the president did not remember their names. When you have Eric Swalwell coming out in that new book from Jonathan Allen saying, we detail, for instance, Congressman Swalwell, who was there looking at him. They came face to face at a picnic. The congressman had to cue Biden as to who he was. He ran against Eric Swalwell in a primary. And we're to believe that Adam Schiff just couldn't gauge anything? He's just this innocent man walking around?
Look, the reports are that Eric Swalwell was pretty intimately close with a Chinese spy. I'm not going to accuse the man of being that observant. I will say this, though. On July 13th, 2024, about 4.5 hours before President, then candidate Donald Trump was shot, and it didn't do the damage that would-be assassin intended. Just before that, I was at Mar-a-Lago interviewing him. And I said, and this is on camera as part of that interview, I don't know if people caught it right then, but I said, look, what was it like to stand next to Joe Biden on that stage on June 27th? And he said, he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. He said, I knew then there was something wrong with him. He wasn't himself. And he went on to kind of detail that. I should clip it and put it up in social media again, because I knew then, I'm like, look, if your opponent thinks that you can't do it and go forth, certainly the party knows it. Certainly those people who, I mean, again, are these people just non-observant? Do they not have any observing?
His wife and son.
Right. Observation skills. Hello. I mean, it's the giant elephant in the room. It's Joe Biden tripping again. It's him not being able to finish his sentences. It's all the things. Donald Trump could see it.
Roseanne, I think the world could see it.
Well, you know, think about after the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, Jill Biden came out and said, didn't he do great? He remembered all the answers to the questions.
And that he had a cold.
Are we in grammar school? What is this? This is not a... As someone who was taking care of someone, a family member with mental decline, months ago, years ago, I was looking at Joe Biden and I said, he's got that look in his eye that I've seen before. And everybody knew it. They thought they could pull the wool over America's eyes, but then it just became too apparent. They had to confess that the man was not up for the job.
Yeah. And meanwhile, it took book deals for us to get the full and unvarnished truth. Good job, reporters.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.